The slap came before I could even wipe my tears. My son, my only son, looked me in the eyes and said, "This isn't your home anymore." It was the same home his father and I built with our bare hands. That day, I didn't just lose my husband. I lost my son too. The slap came so fast, I didn't even have time to blink. The sound of it echoed through the living room, bouncing off the walls still covered with my late husband's photographs. My son, David, my own flesh and blood, stood before me, his eyes filled with something I never thought I'd see in him: cold anger. "This isn't your home anymore," he shouted, his finger trembling as he pointed at the door. "Get out." I stood there, frozen, my hand pressed to my cheek where his palm had landed. My husband's coffin had barely been in the ground for 2 days, and now, the only son I raised with love was throwing me out of the house his father built with his bare hands. Tears welled in my eyes, not from the pain of the slap, but from the words that followed. Words that cut deeper than any wound ever could. I picked up my small black handbag, the same one I had carried to my husband's funeral, and walked toward the door. David didn't move. He didn't even look back as I turned the knob and stepped out into the cold evening air. The sound of the door slamming behind me felt like the sound of my heart breaking. But if only he knew what I was going to do next. It all started months before my husband, Richard, passed away. We were an ordinary old couple living in a quiet neighborhood. Richard had been battling a heart condition for years, and I was his caregiver. I cooked for him, made sure he took his medicine, and sat by his side through the long nights when he couldn't sleep. David, our son, used to visit sometimes, but after he got married to that woman, Clara, he changed. She didn't like me. I could tell from the first day she called me Mrs. Johnson instead of Mom. She was polite in front of Richard, but when he wasn't around, her words carried poison. "Maybe you should move into a care home," she once told me, smiling like it was a kind suggestion. "You're getting old, and David needs space to build his own family." I remember laughing softly that day, thinking she was just joking. But deep down I knew she meant it. Richard used to say, "Don't worry, Mary. Our son would never turn against us." But life has a way of testing the words we speak. When Richard's health got worse, David stopped visiting as much. He would say work was keeping him busy, but I noticed how his wife's voice always came through the phone in the background, sharp, impatient. The night Richard died, it was raining heavily. I sat beside his bed, holding his hand, whispering prayers. "Mary," he said weakly, "promise me you'll stay strong. Don't let them take what's yours." I nodded through my tears, not understanding what he meant at the time. After his funeral, the house felt emptier than ever. The silence was heavy, until the day David came over with Clara. She didn't even wait to sit before talking. "Mom," she began, crossing her legs, "David and I have decided to renovate the house. We need you to move out for a while." "Move out?" I asked, confused. "Where would I go?" David sighed, rubbing his temples. "It's for your own good, Mom. You can stay with Aunt Susan for a while." "But this is my home," I said softly. "Your father built it for us." That's when it happened. Clara smirked, whispering something into his ear. David stood up, his face tightening. "I said get out," he yelled. "You've been controlling my life for too long. This isn't your home anymore." And before I could speak another word, his hand met my face. I walked down the street that night with no idea where to go. The rain had started again, and I didn't have an umbrella. The cold drops mixed with my tears as I wandered aimlessly, clutching my bag to my chest. Cars passed by, splashing puddles on my shoes. I must have looked like a ghost, an old woman lost in her own grief. When I reached the end of the street, I saw an old house with lights still on. My childhood friend Linda lived there. I hadn't spoken to her in years, but something pulled me toward her gate. "Mary," she said in shock when she opened the door. "What on earth happened to you?" I couldn't speak. I just broke down in her arms. She took me in, gave me dry clothes, and made me a cup of tea. When I finally managed to tell her what happened, she sat back and shook her head. "Your son did that? After all you've done for him?" I nodded. Linda was quiet for a moment, then said something that made my heart stop. "Mary, didn't Richard leave something behind for you?" He told my husband once that he had a plan to protect you in case something went wrong. My heart started pounding. I remembered what Richard had said on his deathbed. Don't let them take what's yours. Could he have meant? I reached for my bag and took out the old keys I had carried since the day of the funeral. One of them was unfamiliar. It was small gold and had a tag on it that read "For Mary." My hands trembled as I looked at it. I didn't know what door it belonged to, but somehow, I knew it would change everything. And as thunder rolled outside and the rain poured harder, I whispered to myself, "Richard, what did you do?" Because if this key was what I thought it was, my son was about to learn a lesson he would never forget. The next morning, sunlight streamed through Linda's kitchen window, touching my face with warmth I hadn't felt in days. The smell of freshly baked bread filled the air. For a moment, I almost forgot everything that had happened. The slap, the shouting, the door closing behind me. But then I saw the small golden key lying beside my teacup, and reality returned like a heavy weight pressing on my chest. Linda noticed my eyes fixed on it. "You didn't sleep much, did you?" she asked softly. I shook my head. "No. I kept thinking about Richard. And this key. He must have meant something by it." She leaned closer. "You said there was a tag that read 'For Mary,' right? Then it must be something important. Maybe a safety deposit box? Or a secret place?" Her words sent a shiver down my spine. Richard had always been a quiet, thoughtful man. He planned everything carefully. If he left me something, it wasn't by accident. After breakfast, Linda offered to drive me to the bank where Richard had kept an account for years. The same small-town bank we'd used since we got married. The teller there, Mr. Collins, had known us for decades. When I told him about the key, his eyes widened. "Mrs. Johnson, I think I know what this is." He disappeared into the back for a few minutes and returned with a small metal box covered in dust. "Your husband left this in our private storage 5 years ago. He said it was to be released only to you." My hands trembled as he placed the box on the table. I used the key to open it. Inside was a single envelope, yellowed with age. My heart pounded as I unfolded the paper inside. It was Richard's handwriting. "My dearest Mary, if you are reading this, then I am no longer with you. I've worried for years about how David has changed." I saw the greed in his eyes and the coldness in his wife's smile. "You always believed he'd come back to his senses, but I knew better. So I made a plan. The house, the land, and all that I own are not in David's name. They are in yours, through a trust one created. If they ever turn against you, go to Mr. Harris, my lawyer, and show him this letter. He knows everything. Remember what I told you. Don't let them take what's yours. With all my love, Richard." Tears streamed down my cheeks as I read those words again and again. My husband, even in death, had protected me. Linda smiled sadly. "He was a good man, Mary. He saw what was coming." I nodded, holding the letter close to my heart. "And now I know what I must do." Later that day, I took a bus to the city. The ride was long, and every bump on the road reminded me of the roughness of life itself. I thought about David, my sweet little boy who used to bring me flowers from the garden, who used to call me his hero. How did he turn into this stranger? When I arrived at the lawyer's office, Mr. Harris looked shocked to see me. "Mrs. Johnson, I thought you moved in with your son." "Not anymore," I said quietly. "Richard left me something, and it's time I used it." He nodded slowly and pulled out a thick brown folder. "Yes, I've been keeping this for years, just in case. Everything your husband owned, including your home, the farmland, and his savings, is under your name. You are the sole owner." I blinked, unable to speak. "But," David said. Mr. Harris sighed. "Your son doesn't know. Richard told me never to reveal it unless you came personally. I think he wanted to test your strength first." I left the office that day with tears in my eyes and something I hadn't felt in a long time: power. The world suddenly seemed brighter, the air lighter. For the first time since the funeral, I felt Richard's presence beside me. When I returned to Linda's house, she was sitting on the porch waiting. "Well?" she asked eagerly. I smiled. "He left me everything. The house, the land, all mine. My son has no right to it." She clapped her hands in joy. "Oh, that's wonderful. What will you do now?" I looked out at the road that led to my old home. I'll go back, I said softly. But not as a broken woman. I'll go back as the owner. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake thinking about how things had changed. The pain of David's betrayal still burned deep inside me, but beneath that pain was a new kind of calm. The calm that comes before a storm. Because I wasn't going to beg for love anymore. I wasn't going to cry on their doorstep. I was going to walk into that house, head held high, and make them realize the truth. The next morning, I dressed in one of Richard's favorite dresses, a soft blue gown with small white flowers, and pinned my hair up neatly. Linda wanted to come with me, but I told her I needed to do this alone. When I reached the house, the garden was overgrown. The front gate was slightly open. I could hear laughter inside, Clara's voice sharp and mocking. I stood there for a moment, my hand on the gate, taking a deep breath. Then I walked in. The laughter stopped. Clara was sitting in the living room with her phone in hand, and David stood near the fireplace. Their smiles vanished when they saw me. "Mom," David said, his tone uneasy. "What are you doing here?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "I came home." Clara scoffed. "We told you to leave, remember?" I smiled faintly. "Yes. But this time, I brought something with me." I took out the envelope and placed it on the table. "Your father left this for me," I said, my voice calm but firm. "And before you say another word, I think you should read it." David frowned, unfolding the paper. His hands began to shake as his eyes scanned the words. His face turned pale. Clara tried to grab the letter, but he pulled it away. "What does it say?" she demanded. David's voice was barely a whisper. "The house, the land, it's not ours. It's all in Mom's name." The room fell silent. I could almost hear their hearts beating. Clara's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I just stood there, calm and steady, watching them realize what they had done. And then I said the words Richard once told me, the words that echoed like thunder through the room. "I told you, David, don't let anyone take what's yours." And now, I'm doing exactly that. I turned and walked toward the front door, but before I could reach it, Clara's voice rose behind me, sharp, angry, desperate. "You can't just come back and take over. We've made plans. We already." But before she could finish her sentence, I heard a loud crash behind me, the sound of glass breaking, followed by David shouting, "Clara, stop." I turned around, and what I saw made my blood run cold. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the house like thunder. My heart jumped into my throat as I spun around. Clara stood near the window, her hand bleeding, her face twisted with anger. Pieces of the flower vase Richard had gifted me on our 25th anniversary lay scattered across the floor. "You think you can just walk back into this house and take everything?" she shouted, her eyes wild. "You're an old fool, Mary. You should have stayed gone." David grabbed her arm. "Clara, stop it. You're bleeding." She yanked her arm away and glared at him. "Don't tell me to stop. Do you have any idea what this means? We've spent everything, David, everything. We needed this house." I froze. "Spent everything?" I repeated softly. Clara's face went pale, realizing what she had just said. David looked at me, guilt filling his eyes. "Mom, please don't listen to her. Things have been hard. I made some bad investments. I thought." "You thought you could steal from me?" I interrupted, my voice trembling. "From your own mother?" For a moment, there was silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. David lowered his head, unable to meet my eyes. Clara glared at him as if blaming him for everything. "Mary," she said coldly, "you have no idea how hard things have been for us. David lost his job months ago. We were drowning in debt. That house was our only chance to start over." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "So you slapped me, threw me out into the rain, and took what wasn't yours, just because you were struggling?" Clara's lips curled into a smirk. "Survival of the fittest, dear. The world doesn't owe you anything." Her words hit me like a whip. I felt anger rising inside me, not just anger, but disappointment. I looked at my son, the same boy who once cried in my arms after scraping his knee, who once promised to take care of me when I grew old. Now that boy was gone. "David," I said softly, "when your father and I built this home, We dreamed of filling it with love, not greed. I never thought I'd see the day you'd choose money over family. He looked at me with red eyes. Mom, please. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Clara scoffed. Don't apologize to her. You're just too weak to do what's necessary. And then she stormed past him toward the door. You two can fight over this house all you want. I'm done. She snatched her purse from the couch, slamming the door so hard the walls trembled. I stood there, breathing heavily, feeling the weight of everything crash down on me. The house was silent again, except for the faint sound of David's sobs. He sank to the floor, his head in his hands. Mom, he whispered, I'm sorry. I looked at him for a long moment, then knelt beside him. Sorry doesn't heal what's broken, David. You hurt me in a way I can never forget. But you're still my son. I just don't know if I can ever trust you again. He lifted his head, tears streaming down his face. Please let me make it right. I sighed. We'll see. But right now you need to leave. Both of you do. This house isn't a place for shouting and anger. It's a home your father built with love, and I won't let that love die. He nodded slowly, stood up, and walked toward the door. Before he stepped out, he turned to me and whispered, I'll find a way to earn back your forgiveness, Mom. Then he left. The next few days were quiet. I cleaned the house from top to bottom, trying to erase the chaos they had brought with them. Each room held memories. Richard's laughter in the kitchen, David's childhood toys in the attic, the creak of the old rocking chair on the porch. But as peaceful as it seemed, something didn't feel right. On the third night, I heard noises outside, faint whispers, footsteps near the window. I grabbed a flashlight and peered through the curtains, but no one was there. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. The next morning, I went out to water the flowers. That's when I noticed it, muddy footprints near the back door. Fresh ones. My heart started to race. I looked around, but the street was empty. I decided to call Linda. I think someone's been around the house, I told her. Do you think it's David? She asked. I don't know, I said. But something doesn't feel right. That night, I locked every door and window. I even left the porch light on, hoping it would scare away whoever was lurking around. But around midnight, I woke to a sound, a creak, slow and careful, coming from the kitchen. My heart pounded as I reached for the old walking stick Richard had carved for me. I tiptoed down the hallway, the floorboards creaking beneath my feet. The light from the kitchen spilled into the hall. I peeked around the corner and froze. David was standing there, holding something in his hands. A bag, half open, stuffed with jewelry and cash from the drawer in my room. David, I whispered. He jumped, eyes wide with fear. Mom, I can explain. But before he could finish, I felt my knees weaken. My son, the same one who said he wanted forgiveness, was stealing from me again. I took a shaky step forward. You promised me, David. You promised to change. His voice broke. I didn't want to. Clara came back. She said she'd leave me if I didn't get money. I'm desperate. Mom. My heart ached. The pain of betrayal cut deeper this time. So you thought you could steal from your mother again? After everything? He dropped the bag and covered his face. I'm sorry, he cried. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I wanted to shout, to scream, to tell him to get out and never come back. But before I could say anything, a loud knock echoed at the front door. David froze. I turned toward the sound, my pulse racing. The knocking grew louder, steady, powerful, like someone demanding to be let in. David whispered, Who's that? I looked toward the door, fear tightening my chest. I don't know. Then through the wooden door a familiar voice spoke, calm, cold, and filled with venom. Mary, the voice said. Open the door. We need to talk. It was Clara. My heart froze when I heard her voice. Clara, the last person I wanted to see. And the one who had already destroyed enough of my peace. David looked terrified, his eyes darting from me to the door. Mom, he whispered, don't open it. But the knocking came again, harder this time. Mary, Clara shouted. I know you're in there. Open this door right now, or I'll make sure you regret it. I straightened my back and held Richard's old walking stick firmly. Stay behind me, I said to David. even though my hands were trembling. Slowly, I walked toward the door and unlocked it, just enough to look through the gap. Clara stood outside, her eyes bloodshot, hair messy, and rage painted across her face. She looked nothing like the polished woman she used to be. Behind her was a small black car parked at an angle, engine still running. "What do you want, Clara?" I asked quietly. She pushed at the door, forcing it open. "You think you can just throw me out and take everything? That house belongs to us. David and I built our life here." I stepped back, keeping the stick ready. "Your life? You built nothing but lies. This house was built by Richard, and it belongs to me." Her eyes narrowed. "You selfish old woman. If you hadn't come back, everything would have been fine. But no, you had to ruin it. You had to make him choose between us." She pointed at David, her voice cracking. "And look at him now. A failure just like his father." "Don't you talk about my father like that," David shouted. "He was a better person than we'll ever be." Clara laughed bitterly. "Oh, how sweet. Standing up for mommy now, are you? You couldn't even stand up for yourself when I asked you to take control of this place." "Enough," I snapped, slamming the walking stick against the floor. "You both have taken enough from me. Clara, I want you to leave before I call the police." Her smile faded. "You wouldn't dare." I took a deep breath, looking her in the eyes. "Try me." For a moment, she stared at me, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Desperation. Then suddenly, she lunged forward, trying to grab the bag David had dropped earlier. The bag with the jewelry and cash. "Stop!" David shouted, running toward her. They struggled near the table, both pulling at the bag. The contents spilled across the floor, coins, bills, and trinkets scattering like raindrops. "Clara, please," David begged. "It's over. Let it go." "Never," she screamed, her face twisted with anger. Then, in a split second, her foot slipped on the scattered coins. She fell backward, hard, hitting her head on the edge of the table. The house went silent. The only sound was the ticking of the old clock on the wall. I rushed to her side. "Clara." But she didn't move. Her eyes were open, staring at nothing. David knelt beside her, shaking her shoulders. "Clara. Clara, please wake up." His voice broke into sobs. "No, no, no." My hands trembled as I called the ambulance. The next few minutes were a blur, flashing lights, voices, chaos. They took her away, and David went with them. I stood in the doorway long after the ambulance disappeared down the road, my mind spinning. I didn't want things to end this way. Not with hatred. Not with loss. But somehow, it always seemed that pain followed wherever greed took root. I closed the door slowly, the weight of everything pressing down on my chest. The house was empty again. Too empty. I walked through each room, touching the walls, remembering better times. Richard's laughter, David's tiny footsteps, the smell of Sunday dinners. They all felt so far away. I sat down in the old rocking chair on the porch, watching the sun rise. The orange light touched the garden that had once been neglected, now blooming again with the flowers I had replanted. My heart ached for my son. I didn't hate him. I pitied him. He was lost, trapped between love and greed, between the past and the future. As the morning light warmed my face, I whispered to myself, maybe one day he'll understand. But even as I said it, I knew that something had changed in me forever. Hours later, my phone rang. It was David. "Mom," his voice was quiet, broken. "She's gone." My breath caught. "Clara?" He sniffed. "Yes. They said she didn't survive the fall." I closed my eyes. "I'm so sorry, David. She wanted money so bad," he said through tears. "And now look where that got her. I can't believe I let things go this far." "Come home," I said softly. "You need to rest." He hesitated. "If you'll still have me." "Of course I will," I whispered. "You're my son. You always will be." That night, David came home. His face was pale, eyes swollen from crying. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, his hands shaking. "Mom," he said, "I don't deserve your kindness. I hurt you. I betrayed you. But I promise. I'll make things right. I'll fix the house. I'll take care of you. No more lies. No more greed." I looked at him. tears welling in my eyes. I don't need money, David. I just need my son back. He nodded slowly, reaching across the table to hold my hand. You have him, Mom. I promise. And for the first time in a long time, I saw something in his eyes I thought was gone forever, sincerity. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered that our story wasn't over yet. Because sometimes when a storm passes, it doesn't leave peace behind. It leaves silence before another storm begins. It had been 3 months since Clara's death. The police had ruled it an accident, and the case was closed. The house was quiet again, almost too quiet. David had started helping around, fixing broken doors, painting walls, planting flowers in the garden. He was trying, I could see that. But something in him had changed. He spoke less, smiled less, and spent long nights staring out the window. Sometimes, I'd find him sitting by Richard's old chair, holding a picture of his father, tears in his eyes. One evening, as I prepared dinner, I found a letter on the table addressed to me. The handwriting was David's. My hands shook as I opened it. Mom, I know I've caused you more pain than anyone should. Clara's death haunts me. Every night, I hear her voice and see her fall. I can't live like this anymore. I'm leaving for a while, to start over, to find myself again. Please don't worry. I'll send letters. Thank you for still calling me your son, even when I didn't deserve it. I'll come back when I'm the man Dad would have been proud of. Love, David. Tears dripped onto the paper as I read his words. My heart broke again, but this time not from betrayal, from love. From the kind of pain that comes when a mother lets her child go, hoping they'll find their way back. I folded the letter carefully and placed it beside Richard's picture. You'd be proud of him, I whispered. He's finally trying. The weeks turned into months. The house became a place of peace again. I spent my days tending the garden, baking bread, and writing in my journal. Sometimes I'd receive postcards from different towns, always signed, Love, David. He was healing, and so was I. One sunny morning, I sat on the porch, sipping tea and watching the birds play near the fence. I closed my eyes and smiled, feeling a sense of calm that I hadn't felt in years. And then a voice broke the silence. Mom. I opened my eyes, and there he was standing at the gate, suitcase in hand, his face filled with peace. David. I whispered, standing up, tears already forming. He walked toward me, smiling softly. I told you I'd come back. I hugged him tightly, feeling the warmth of forgiveness wash over both of us. After everything, the pain, the betrayal, the loss, we were finally home again. Sometimes life breaks you just to rebuild you stronger. And as the sun set behind the house Richard built with love, I knew one thing for sure. I had lost almost everything. But in the end, I found something greater. Peace. Sometimes pain is the price of peace. If you've ever been betrayed by the ones you love, drop a broken heart in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that remind us how strong we can be.